Story 1. Burn it and forget about it. I don't even want a funeral or headstone. I don't want anyone feeling they have to put flowers on my grave for my birthday or anything. Once I'm gone, they should move on. Story 2. Take the usable parts, give them to others. Burn me, place me in a tree, plant me in a haunted forest. Story 3. Give it to a medical school. Let those eager students examine me and learn what a diet of hot wings and pizza does to the human body. Story 4. Grind it up and feed it to animals. I have eaten enough of them and should keep the cycle going. Respect your food. Story 5. Prepaid for cremation. I was unwell when I made the payment, so I believe the plan would likely be used within 6 months. Story 6. They each have to learn an ancient curse from a different culture and scatter my ashes in front of Jason Wagner's house, so I can become a ghost and haunt him forever. Story 7. I would love something dramatic, like being shot out of a cannon or turned into a haunted statue. But realistically, just go with whatever is funniest and least stressful for them. Maybe a Viking funeral if that is possible. Story 8. Donate to science. It is better to contribute rather than let it be wasted or deteriorating underground. Story 9. Whichever option is cheapest, if they can bring themselves to discard me. Maybe they could donate to the military. I assume that doesn't incur a cost since it's a donation. Story 10. First sell the organs. Then pour wine on it indirectly. They can filter it through their kidneys first if they wish. Let it rot and discover new bacteria that degrades plastic or something. Story 11. I have made arrangements to be buried at sea. My stepsister has always said that when I die, she will happily dance on my grave. I would like to see her try at 500 feet down. Story 12. I want to become soil, not be burned to ash and then spread somewhere. I also want a funeral service so that my family can say goodbye. As someone whose father died and was cremated without any service, I can say from experience that this kind of departure actually makes it harder for the family to move on. The reason we have funerals is that some sort of ritual goodbye helps us process the finality of death and get past it. I want to script a ritual myself but allow space for people to speak if they want to. However, I don't want to force anyone to make speeches or say anything on my behalf. Story 13. Whatever they want to do with it to achieve the most convenience or closure, I will not care at that point. Story 14. Preferably, I want to be composted, as stated in my will. However, ultimately, I am dead and do not care about what happens to me. Story 15. I want my family to spend a significant amount of money on a coffin, an open casket wake, a religious mass, a funeral, and a headstone that includes my birth and death dates along with all my relationships. I also hope that everyone will bring flowers to my grave on my birthday, Christmas, my wedding anniversary, and the anniversary of my death. Just kidding, I plan to hike into a forest and not come back. Story 16. Donate it to science. While I may not have contributed much to society while alive, my body can contribute a little to science and medicine. Story 17. Donate any necessary organs and tissues and compost the rest. I no longer need them and I am no longer present. Story 18. Well, the aspects of leaving you where you drop and discarding you in the dumpster are not applicable because deceased bodies undergo processes that emit odors resembling a mixture of rotten eggs, rotting meat, ammonia, and sewage. The liquefaction process also begins, attracting flies and maggots. For a short period, your deceased body can transmit biohazards such as hepatitis B and C, tuberculosis, certain prion diseases, cholera, and Ebola. This is why scientists faced significant challenges in controlling Ebola outbreaks. Family members insisted on retrieving the body for burial, resulting in additional infections among those who came into contact with it. The primary concern is the contamination of nearby water sources. Any remaining family members will incur the cost of disposing of your remains, which can be high unless you are an unidentified individual buried in a potter's field. Cremation is the most economical option. Some unconventional burial alternatives may be prohibitively expensive. Cremated remains are entirely sterile and lack any nutritional value to support the growth of plants or trees. Story 19. Plant a tree with the remains and let it return naturally to the earth. I do not understand modern caskets and cemeteries. Story 20. No funeral. Donate all usable parts you can. Choose the least expensive remains disposal option. At the party, share stories about me and how remarkable I was. Story 21. I wanted to be buried with an apple tree above me, so the roots could intertwine with me. Year after year, people would come to visit as they enjoyed an apple. Story 22. No wake, just a simple cremation ceremony. Spread my ashes in the ocean and carry me only in your memories. Story 23. Cremated and placed in the garden I have been growing and nurturing for the past 40 years. I believe it would encourage my son, to whom all this will be left, to weed it occasionally. Controlling, I know. It is a perennial garden with flowers, nothing edible, which might be too unusual. Story 24. Donate it to science. I want to be helpful and useful since I feel like I am constantly failing in life. Maybe after death I will do something better. Story 25. I hope no one finds my body. Let it rot where it drops. Let it be marred by wild animals and desecrated, then disintegrate into nothingness. A lonely, painful death. Story 26. I want to be cremated and have my ashes scattered in the sea. Let me be fish food. In all seriousness, I don't want people to mourn me or visit me. Just set me free and live your lives. Story 27. Cremated and the ashes spread on a hayfield. The hay will then be eaten by the cows and turned into dairy products, and some of the molecules in my body will now be incorporated into someone else's in the future. Story 28. I have already arranged to donate it to science. When the medical students are finished learning from it, the research facility will cremate the body and send the ashes to my children. Story 29. Burn me, create jewelry, turn me into a wreath. I don't really care as long as they don't bury me. Grave sites are a waste of space and money, in my humble opinion. Story 30. I want to donate as many organs as possible. Anything useful may go, including skin, scalp, and teeth. Then, burn it all and dispose of the ashes somewhere. No religious services, no churches, and preferably no prayers either. Story 31. I think there is a program that turns ashes into a planter and includes a seed. Then it can grow into a tree when planted. I want to be a tree. Story 32. Either fired out of a cannon and into the ocean or buried directly in the ground. No coffin. No embalming either way. Let nature take me. Story 33. Throw me in a volcano and have a Hawaiian ceremony. So when the volcano erupts, I will be spread all over like the queen I am. Story 34. Feed me to the pigs or any other animal so they don't have to worry about expensive funeral costs. Story 35. I always tell my wife to put me in a boat and set it on fire, but I'm pretty sure that's not possible. Story 36. Whatever they want. A big funeral, no funeral, cremation, burial, embalming, body donation, human composting, changing their numbers and running before the hospital can collect them, selling it to a scientist, being eaten by dogs, being consumed by unusual individuals, or being mounted and displayed in a church. I'll be dead, so it doesn't matter. Story 37. Doesn't matter, to be honest. Once you're done, that's it. Just try to move on and don't spend too much time mourning. Life is for the living. Story 38. During the viewing, I lowered my body down on strings from the rafters like in Weekend at Bernie's and began a choreographed dance to Thriller. Story 39. Seal a small piece of me that could be used for DNA in a way that keeps it viable. A large pyre for the rest like in Wicker Man. I want to see if I wake up in 4,500 years with the same consciousness because an alien middle manager finds my DNA and tries to impress his boss with a human who has minimal microplastic content. Story 40. In the woods under a tree or one of those tree-like structures that I saw online, which is probably fake. Story 41. Cremate me and mix my ashes with those of my favorite pets that have passed away, then spread them in our favorite places. Story 42. I want to be cremated, and they can bring me to places like the pub. I can sit at the table and hang out with them. Story 43. I know I want to be cremated and mixed with all the pets I have lost over the years, It depends on my husband where we will go, though. If he wants to be included, then someone should spread all of our ashes in Disney or Japan, two of our favorite places, or even Disney and Japan. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery for our ashes to be buried is also a strong option, as many people do not realize it is still an active cemetery. If he prefers to be by himself, I, along with the pets, can go into the crypt where my older sister is already laid to rest, and he can choose his own location. Story 44. I am having my daughters cremate me and scatter my ashes in a couple of different places. The top of Mount LeConte, Coogee Beach Cliffs, and Sunset Cliffs in San Diego. I want them to travel, so I will leave money specifically for that purpose. Story 45. I support cremation. I dislike the idea of being buried, as I do not trust that the grave will remain undisturbed. Story 46. I want to be cremated. I can't decide between being placed in a mortar and shot over the ocean like a firework or turned into a giant redwood. Story 47. Discard their personal morals and donate my body to the most degrading or profitable scientific research center for humanity. I don't want people throwing flowers on my grave and crying for an hour while someone gives a lengthy speech about our country and how great a specific public figure is. Story 48. Burn it or dump it, but please do it as environmentally clean as possible. I won't be around, so it doesn't matter to me. When I'm gone, I hope those who care will go to the pub, raise a glass to me, and mention that they were glad to know me a little. Story 49. I remember a long time ago there was a video where they put a party hat on a body and strapped it to a ceiling fan, so it spun around the entire time like a disco ball. It was a meme, but I have been inspired ever since. Story 50. I want to be used as fertilizer for a tree and be planted somewhere. I would prefer to be useful instead of being a waste. Story 51. I have been thinking about having my body placed in a tree pod for burial. This is a beautiful way to view life and death coexisting perfectly and harmoniously. You cannot have one without the other. Story 52. I don't want a funeral. Please donate my organs if possible, and then I want to donate my body to science for medical students, experiments, or any suitable institution. I have no preferences. It could even be sold by someone or donated to the military to observe what happens when their new experimental explosives go off. Honestly, I don't care. Story 53. Either buried or in a cremation tree. I have considered medical science, but there are so many restrictions around donation that I do not want to stress anyone out. Story 54. Donate my body to science. I used to have it on my driver's license, but the last time I went, the person didn't put it on there. Maybe it's because I am 84 now? Story 55. Bury me in satin. Lay me down in a bed of roses. Take me to the river at dawn. Send me away with the words of a love song. Story 56. I want jewelry to be made with vials that my ashes can be placed in, and anyone who wants to carry a little of me with them can. Story 57. Have fun, I suppose. Dress me up and put funny hats on me. Take a few pictures. Then put me in a hole with all of my belongings. If I have to be buried in a cave on top of my treasure trove, then so be it. Story 58. I have always clearly communicated that I want to be pushed out of a moving van, from a bridge, into the river nearest my hometown. I doubt they will actually do that due to legal concerns, but hopefully it conveys how little I care about something that will happen when I am no longer alive. Story 59. Depends on how I go. Maybe turn me into a tree, take me back to my home country and send me off in a boat along the coast. If I die from something preventable, leave me at the doorstep of the person or organization responsible. Story 60. I just thought about this the other day. I want to say he cremated and spread my ashes in the ocean in my hometown of Cape May, New Jersey. But is that selfish when I have a husband and 2 sons? Story 61. I don't mind being buried near a nice tree. However, I prefer not to be embalmed. Just dig a large hole, place me in it, and seal it up. Story 62. My best friend had his wife donate his body to Harvard Medical School. The individual in charge of the bodies was selling body parts. One of his customers was purchasing skulls, arranging dried flowers inside them, and selling them online. Eventually, the individual was caught, and the medical school contacted the families whose loved ones' body parts were sold. The families sued the medical school but lost the case. The articles were featured in the Boston Globe starting around June 14, 2023. Story 63. I've been advocating for a while, hoping someone will help me out. Taxidermy. Baby, get me stuffed and have dad in the corner. I would also benefit from having my hand modified to hold a glass, with one hand at a work table. The possibilities are endless. Story 64. I would like to be cremated and scattered in the New River at Sandstone Falls in Hinton, West Virginia. I had a deeply spiritual experience there, and floating down the river for eternity sounds perfect. Story 65. Originally, I wanted to be put in a chipper and fed to the crabs, but my husband thought it was morbid and gory, and most likely illegal. Now I have to figure out something else. Story 66. Originally, I joked about launching my body into space or the ocean, but now I'll settle for cremation so they can carry me around in an urn for comedic effect. What do you think about that? Hands down to the urn sitting on the ground. Story 67. Cremation is my wish, and I want my family and friends to have a large farewell party in a location of their choice, as long as it is by the ocean. Story 68. I want my ashes to be delivered to a crematorium. I would like them to be scattered in a lake or in a tomato planter, or both. Story 69. Burn and then shoot me out of a cannon like Hunter S. Thompson, or sneak me up on SpaceX to go to Mars. Story 70. In an ideal world, I envision a space Viking funeral. Fill my vessel with explosives, launch me out the airlock and detonate. In reality, I prefer cremation. Divide my remains and scatter my ashes in places that resonate with me or wherever you believe would be appropriate. Story 71. Donate what you want, burn me and take my ashes to the beach. On the first day, pour me into the ocean and then enjoy everything I loved about the beach. Fish, sun, drinks, and listen to music probably a little louder than you should. Play cornhole, have a great fish fry, and enjoy a steak dinner. Pour one for me and find a random stranger to toast with. Have fun, laugh, cry, or do both. Then move on without a headstone or an urn. Thus ends the lesson. Story 72. Cremate me, put me in an empty coffee can, and hang it out the window while they drive down the highway so I can annoy all the drivers around me one last time. Story 73. Cremate me and scatter my ashes wherever you like. I want everyone to have a joyful celebration at my funeral. Although I won't be there, I want them to enjoy the occasion. Story 74. Feed me to sharks. I've always wanted that to happen after I die. It's completely legal to do this, you just have to be 3 miles out in the ocean. People can chum me and throw pieces of me to the sharks. Story 75. Turn it into concrete, donate, or choose whatever is more cost-effective and less stressful. If they want to have a gathering for themselves, just know I want them to enjoy it. Story 76. I want to be cryogenically frozen, so there's a chance that if the Walt Disney conspiracy is true, I could one day be revived and returned to life. Story 77. I want my ashes turned into gemstones and mounted in the pommel of a sword. That sword should be displayed at a shrine with the swords of all those I can convince to join me. Story 78. I want to be cremated and placed in a biodegradable box, with my ashes not in a plastic bag. I want to be buried in the Alberta foothills, where the wild horses run. I would also be content in a natural cemetery, where bodies are buried as they are. Story 79. Whatever my loved ones want is fine. It is not about me. I am gone and will not care. They can do whatever helps them process their grief. Story 80. Truthfully, it depends on how I die. If it is from natural causes and there is no reason to be suspicious, they can choose between traditional burial and cremation, whichever is better. If I die under suspicious circumstances and there is a chance I will be exhumed for further examination, I prefer to be kept intact and buried whole. Story 81. I am an organ donor. Please take anything that can help someone in need. There are many options available, and there's no point in letting anything go to waste when it could benefit someone. I won't be needing them, so I am okay with it. I apologize for any misunderstanding. I meant to refer to my own choices, not to suggest what others should do. This is just my opinion, and I'm feeling a bit exhausted. Story 82. I would rather have them cut me up and pass me all around. Throw my brain in a hurricane and the blind can have my eyes. The deaf can take both of my ears if they don't mind the size. Give my stomach to Milwaukee if they run out. Story 83. My friends have all been instructed to give me a memorable send-off. I'm talking about the whole experience. Being the center of the party, engaging in wild activities, water skiing, and everything. After that, if they aren't in jail, I want them to build a medieval catapult and launch me into the ocean while taking bets on how far I fly. Story 84. I have prepared a presentation and information packet for my family on what I would like them to do with me. In short, I wish to be cremated and my ashes mixed into the structures created for a coral reef conservation garden, and then placed in the ocean. If I have to spend most of my life witnessing the bleaching and decline of coral reefs worldwide, I want to contribute to the thriving growth and beautiful ocean ecosystems that I hope future generations will be able to experience after my passing. Story 85. I want a Viking funeral, but I don't have a boat. Instead, you can load my corpse into a trebuchet, cover it in flaming tar and bitumen, and launch it at a billionaire's mega yacht. Story 86. I want my body donated to people for the ethical treatment of animals. I want them to allow my body to decompose on the side of a hot highway in protest of how we treat animals. Story 87. My wife and I have donated our bodies to the local medical school. They will use my body as they see fit and dispose of the remains as medical waste. Story 88. Is there an option for my body to be used by future crime scene technicians for their education? I choose that. Story 89. That is what a will is for. I suggest everyone consider writing one. It's sound financial advice. Story 90. I wouldn't want them to waste any money on it, but the truth is they can do whatever makes them happy. Don't worry about what I want. I just want the best for them. Story 91. I am already an organ donor with whatever is left. It is a toss-up between being turned into mulch or cremated and having my ashes spread somewhere. If they feel inclined to do something unusual, they could consider turning my ashes or hair into diamonds or jewelry. They could then pass me along as a family heirloom or perhaps sell the piece at a random garage sale, allowing me to haunt someone in an odd but hopefully pleasant way through a cursed ring. To be honest, I am already dead and do not want to be a financial burden on my living loved ones. So whatever is easier for them is fine. Story 92. Put me in a cardboard box and let me be food for nature. Story 93. I want my organs donated and whatever is left to be donated to medical research. Once my body is used for medical education, I would like it to be taken to a research facility that studies the decomposition of human bodies. My family can have a gravestone if they wish, but I want my body to be useful and then returned to the earth. Story 94. I used to have a joke about my final wish, which involved coming back from the dead through my friends to haunt my mother, a tough, somewhat intimidating businesswoman. If I die young and tragically, I want my last wish to be that every single friend I have bombards my mother with phone calls about my desire for a Viking funeral. I want to be pushed into the ocean on a raft, and have a friend shoot a flaming arrow into the raft so that I die in the sea. Because she would understand, she knows. 1. I am very stubborn. I would be having one last argument with her. I am ridiculous. Unfortunately, I brought this up to my mother recently. She said that my wish would be respected and my ashes would be placed on a raft, set on fire out at sea. So I guess it will happen. Story 95. I remember a long time ago, one man had himself tossed out of a plane into Camden Yards because he was such a big Baltimore Orioles fan. I thought that was interesting. As for my own preference, taxidermy. Story 96. I have spoken about this with them. If any of my organs can be donated, I give my permission. Additionally, please ensure that I am buried properly. Story 97. Cremation in a cardboard coffin that everyone drew on with markers. I won't even care if there are inappropriate drawings on it. Write something funny, stick a meme on it, I don't mind. Then spread my ashes somewhere beautiful but not too hot or cold. Story 98. My favorite answer to this question is from David Cross. Please be aware that it contains adult content. Story 99. This thread is the pinnacle of Reddit. A group of selfish individuals thinks that once they are gone, no one will miss them. What happens after you die is not for you. It is for those who miss you and want to celebrate their journey with you. Of course, you won't mind. You are dead. Consider your surroundings for once, you unthinking individuals. Story 100. Give anything useful to those who can use it. Conduct scientific research on the rest. Whatever they don't want, convert it into gems for my children. Story 101. I want to be cremated and have my ashes scattered into the Pacific Ocean from a specific spot on the Santa Monica Pier. Story 102. I want a Viking funeral. My wife and family know this. Put my body in a boat and shoot a flaming arrow at it. If legally unable, then I request a pyre, which I believe is the term for where they lay a warrior on a mountain of logs and light it on fire. As my body goes up in flames on the boat, everyone will raise a shot glass of Jameson and say, "To wild card." Story 103. Cremate, then fertilize some local heritage tomatoes. My daughter said no, so fertilize some lilacs or a redbud tree, or some watermelons. If not, do what you wish. Just don't fertilize zucchini, or do it. There's probably a 50% chance it's not more than half mine. Even if it is all mine, I'll be doing other things elsewhere. Story 104. Being one of those artificial reefs would be interesting. They take your ashes, create a cement reef, and place it in the ocean. This provides a new hiding spot for fish and helps rebuild our dying reefs. That would be quite fascinating, I suppose. Story 105. No autopsy, no embalming. Bury me in the wooden coffin my husband has already built. He built it for my uncles, but my uncle's family chose to go with an expensive metal coffin. Bury me in the pre-purchased burial spot by our son, mother-in-law, my mother, and grandmother. If my dear husband passes before me, please buy the cheapest wooden coffin for me. I prefer not to be embalmed or cremated. My only surviving relative is my stepchild, and what she decides to do is ultimately her choice. Story 106. There was a similar post before where someone responded about melting their body in a vat of acid and flinging it at their enemies. But no, really. I'm considering either donating my body to science or a medical school or being buried naturally where I can hopefully help plants grow. I don't want anyone to feel obligated to visit my grave or pay homage. I've already told my closest friends and family. If you miss me, remember my birthday, or think of a funny memory and want to do something with that feeling, the most I would ask is for you to hug a loved one or do something enjoyable with the people around you. Even if you don't, that's fine too. Story 107. The best thing anyone can do for me is to let me rot. Just put me in the ground and let my atoms return to the earth. If a coffin is legally required, then get the cheapest, most easily worn down one and bury me in it. But really, I just want my body in the dirt where it belongs. I'll plan something out in case preparing for a funeral without some sort of baseline is too much, but I want it to be clear that I don't view it as necessary. My spirit won't be upset if they forgo it completely or do something else entirely. Funerals, headstones, and the like are for the living. If they want those things, or if it will help them grieve, they should have them. If there's a financial issue, or if they otherwise don't want them, my loved ones shouldn't feel like they're disrespecting me in any way. If backyard burials were legal for humans, I'd ask to be buried where I have all my pets buried. But they aren't, so I can't. Hopefully, by the time I die, there won't be anything left of them anyway. Maybe bury me with a natural fiber plush toy to honor them if there is time to make one. Just make sure it will decompose with me and not turn into microplastics. Story 108. Cremate me or plant a tree, preferably one that produces edible fruit, using my body as compost. I don't care much about a headstone or having my body buried in a casket. A tree is more useful. Story 109. Try to sell it on eBay. Alternatively, you can light me up and place my ashes in an urn made from a real armadillo wine holder. Thankfully, my sister-in-law is a funeral director, and she is aware of all my plans and promises to make the armadillo arrangement happen. Story 110. I would like my entire body donated to science. It seems wasteful to burn or bury me. I don't really care where most of me goes, but I would love it if my skeleton became a display in a middle or high school science class. During Halloween, the teacher could string it up like a puppet and perform a ventriloquist act. Story 111. Cremate me and spread part of my ashes at the Newport Music Hall and in Norway, if I do not travel there before I die. Story 112. Place it on that mountain in Nepal where they allow the birds to eat the remains. Might as well nourish something. Story 113. I wish they were allowed to throw my body on a large pile of wood and have a bonfire, preferably in a wet forest so it doesn't start a wildfire. Story 114. Donate every part that can be useful to someone for research. Donate my skin, my eyes, my brain. I will be dead, and if the last thing I can do is to be somewhat useful, then please do it. Story 115. Burn it or use the most environmentally friendly option available. I don't need a headstone or anything like that. If I have lived my life as I hoped, I should be remembered fondly by those I hold most important. Story 116. Cremate me. Sprinkle my ashes in the ocean. Anywhere along the Oregon coast would do. I have always preferred Garibaldi or Cannon Beach. Story 117. Throw me in a glacier so I can be frozen and revived in the future. I would prefer cryonics, but it is expensive. Story 118. Donate my body to science, I guess. Let someone learn something from me. Using my skull as a goblet is fine too. Story 119. My maternal grandmother's family is cremated, while my maternal grandfather's family is buried. If I cannot be placed in one of those pods that grow a tree, I will choose cremation. I also want them to include some cannabis with my body during the cremation. Story 120. I don't really care. I'm gone at that point and have moved on to other things. What people do or don't do with my abandoned body is of no relevance to me. Donate it to science or something. Story 121. Trepan me to ensure I'm dead. Then donate any organs that haven't been donated elsewhere to science. If there is any part they don't want, I don't care what happens to the rest. I would want a headstone, although it wouldn't have to contain my body. If I die with nothing, then it's voluntary, but if I have any liquid assets, those should go toward getting a cenotaph first. Story 122. Donate to science. I don't like the idea of being buried or cremated. I may as well do something useful with my life for once. Story 123. I'm sorry, but I once got very upset and said to just cremate me and throw my ashes in the trash. Honestly, does it really matter to the deceased? Story 124. Donate to science. I have a few physical oddities and conditions that can be used for educational purposes upon my death. Story 125. My parents arranged everything years in advance. I didn't fully appreciate that until today when my father-in-law asked my wife to start making plans for his arrangements, as it's too late for him to do it himself. It's a heavy burden, and I worry they may try to take advantage of her, so I am stepping in to manage the process. If you're reflecting on this topic, consider making arrangements yourself to spare your loved ones from the stress. Story 126. I don't know. For my life plan, I want to stay alone my entire life. I'm not sure if I will have friends during that time. Perhaps my body will naturally decay. It is just how it is. Story 127. I have a small retirement account that will cover cremation, and my ashes will be mailed to an army cemetery where my first wife's ashes are buried. That plot is already paid for, and the burial is currently at no charge. There will be no ceremony. My current wife doesn't want another flag, as she already has her first husband's burial flag and shadow box on the wall. Story 128. Donate my organs for transplant if they are usable, including skin and eyes. I have an autoimmune disease that causes my body to attack my brain. There is a small brain bank that studies the brains of people with that disease. Ideally, I would like my brain to go there and help advance research. Then I would like to be cremated. After that, I do not care if I am scattered somewhere, kept in an urn, or planted with a tree, or perhaps a combination of more than one option. I suppose whatever the people closest to me want to do with my ashes, as long as it brings them comfort and feels right to them. Story 129. I want them to do whatever is free. donate my body to science, and inherit all my money without spending any on funeral costs. But I will be dead, so they can do whatever they want. Story 130. Burn me to ashes and have a closed casket ceremony with an empty casket because my ashes have been put into all the food at the repast afterward. Story 131. Put it in the flower bed or the woods without a religious ceremony. I want to be buried in a life-size head and shoulders box, as I buried my gerbils that way when I was young. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.